Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
Do you ever feel like you're doing the journey alone? Have you ever felt like that you just need someone to talk to, someone who could bring some perspective into your world? Or maybe you're not the type of person who learns from watching video courses or reading books, and you just want to talk with someone specifically about your challenges and how to break through them. I want to introduce you to the High Performance Men's Coaching Program. It's an intensive coaching experience designed to unlock a man's full potential in his life, business, and relationships. Over this past year, I've brought together and trained some of the best coaches in the world to help men step up, stop playing small, and become the strongest versions of themselves. Learn more about High Performance Men's Coaching at kfmcoach.com. Again, that's kfmcoach.com. You are not alone, and we are here to cut through the crap, hold you accountable, and challenge you so that you can make your dreams become a reality. Go to kfmcoach.com to learn more and apply. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Charlie, the quote-unquote Spaniard Brenneman. He's a former professional fighter, speaker, mentor, and author. Charlie, welcome to the show.
I appreciate being here. I've never heard it put that way, quote, unquote. I've always just said the Spaniard. So it can be quote, unquote, whatever you want.
All right, Charlie. So we dive in every show with a favorite quote or some sort of saying that you've lived by, maybe something that you tell yourself when you're training, something you tell yourself before you get in the ring or before you get on stage and speak. So what do you got for us?
Yeah, you know, that the way you put it, it is a quote for certain, but the follow-up there was something that you've lived by. And since I was young, my parents taught me to live by a standard of excellence. So my quote is, you are what you repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit.
And how has that helped you out in your journey?
You know, it's setting the bar at excellence. That's it. Not saying that I achieve that standard in everything I do, but that's the bar that I set. That's the expected outcome from myself and my family. So it kind of sets you to that mentality. And, you know, even if you have a bad day, you're still doing better than 99% of the population.
Yeah. What have you found around the whole mental game of excellence? Like you set a standard for yourself that, hey, I'm going to do the best I can. I am a high achiever. What role does that play in the actual results that you get, whether you're fighting, whether you're speaking or you're coaching or writing a book?
Yeah. So a couple of things. One, it puts a lot of pressure on yourself, you know, to live by that standard. You have to, you know, a follow-up to that is how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if I'm going to sit here and say that's my quote, that's my thing, I have to live by it. So you open yourself up for others, you know, to pick you apart. So that's certainly something that, you know, you have to be aware of. In terms of the results, I mean, I've spent so much of my life, and this is talking about from the time I was 8 years old until, you know, my last fight was 2 years ago. And I spent so much time worrying or not worrying, worrying, feeling bad because I didn't get desired outcome. But what I realized really that with the last couple fights and post-fighting is, you know, the outcome is great and awesome, but something that's just a little bit more important than the outcome is that journey. And if you live that journey with excellence, then win or lose the outcome, that truly is what matters.
So I think this is a big point here. Like, the fact that you actually got in the cage, the fact that you actually showed up in the gym and were training and working out, like, is that what you're talking about? Like, just the fact you showed up, that's what you're talking about?
Well, you mean the excellence part of it?
I'm talking about, yeah. Just because you said it's not whether you win or lose, it's the fact you're on the journey.
Yeah. So, I mean, no, not just that I showed up. I mean, a lot of people showed up. It's that I put every single ounce of my being into that. And that's when I say, yeah, the outcome doesn't really matter because you put everything into it. If you're just showing up, going through the motions, then I don't know what to say to you, but if you
Yeah.
really and truly put everything into it, then that's when that matters slightly more than the outcome.
Yeah, that's big. So how can you tell the difference between a guy who's let's just say just showing up, let's say on the mat or in the gym, versus a guy who's there intentionally and he's given it everything he has? Like, what's the difference? What do you see there?
Yeah, when you've been around, through my own experience training, but also by way of being around. I mean, I've spent significant amount of time with world champions, guys who are some of the best fighters in history. So it's easy to tell when someone wants it or someone doesn't want it. And case in point, equating it to a fighter. I mean, there's a lifestyle that you have to live. I mean, there's little things, being on time. There's little things, staying after. There's little things of, showing up, driving, committing to fully put yourself in the best situation possible. And it's easy to tell when guys don't show up. They show up late. They leave early. They have an excuse. Their wife, their girlfriend, etc. And I'll add to that. I mean, that's a real thing. So you might be saying, well, your wife, your girlfriend, what? But I mean, if you want to be the best, sometimes your supporting cast has to support you in that journey. In the regular world, I work with people, formally, informally, and it's about as easy to tell if someone really wants it as it is to tell black from white, because it's a cut and dry difference.
Do you think that when someone doesn't really want it, that they're likely to never reach their highest potential?
You know what? That's a good question. And
like, if they just keep showing up and like, will they actually achieve some sort of success here?
I mean, ultimately it's up to them, but I can tell you that if I would start working with someone or I would talk to someone in the initial impression is this person doesn't want it, I would not give up on them. No, because what happens, I'm such a fan of I heard a podcast with Tony Robbins talking about push and pull motivation. Uh-huh. The power of pull motivation. If you come to me and you don't have an ounce of commitment, real true commitment, like there are ways to pull you into that. And I mean, there are strategies, there are techniques that I would use to not just shut the door on you, because I don't believe that if you don't want it now, that you can't want it in a month from now.
Okay. And just for everyone, just recapping, because we're talking about like gym and training and stuff. So Charlie here, you fought in over, it looks like 19 fights, right? And you have 11 of those fights in the UFC, in the octagon.
Yeah, I've had 27 fights, so 19 wins, 8 losses.
Where am I? Okay. All right. So yeah, 19 wins, 8 losses here. Just to recap for the audience, and coming back to what you just shared, push and pull motivation. I'm sure there's a lot of people saying, hey, what was that? Could you break that down a little bit?
Yeah. So push motivation, if you're a leader, so I'll talk to two different perspectives. If you're a leader, push motivation is me, say I'm your father, I'm your teacher, I'm your coach, sitting on the sidelines, overweight, with a soda in my hand, saying, hey, Andrew, go, run faster. Come on, pick it up. Andrew, come on, go. In the meantime, I'm sitting on my butt, overweight. That's push motivation, where I'm not, me as the leader, as the mentor, I'm not showing you. I'm not living it. I also love, don't, be about it. Don't talk about it.
Yeah.
That's push. Pull motivation is kind of indirect. It's what I do with my kids. I have 2 little kids, but my daughter already knows that I go to the gym all the time. She already knows that I'm sweaty from working out all the time. And that's pull motivation. Whenever you as the source are doing it, you're not saying it, you're doing it. And then those around you who want to succeed are pulled up towards you, rather than you standing behind them and you pushing them ahead.
So the push seems like, I'm thinking of like your dad when you're in football, like he's older and he's just kind of yelling, like he's obviously not playing football, or maybe never did, or something like that, or maybe some of the coaches in Little League. But pull motivation, what I'm getting from that is you are the message.
You are 100% right. Yes, that's a great way to put it.
Is there any, because when I look at the push motivation, I'm just like, are there pros to that? I mean, it seems like obviously you want pull motivation.
Yeah, I don't know, to make an absolute that there's not, but I certainly believe that as a leader, or if we're just talking about motivation in general, pull motivation, I think is much more effective than push motivation.
I think this is an interesting topic, because we just wrapped up the Olympics here not too long ago. And does the Olympic coach have an Olympic medal?
Is that Is that your question?
That's kind of just throwing it out there, because obviously it's there's some, but I wonder if there's a large percentage that don't.
So are you saying that if the coach, so I answer correctly, the coach doesn't have a medal, is that to say, well, he hasn't really been there, he doesn't know?
Well, if he's able to get the result for his person, and the people he's training, I mean, does it even matter then? I mean, he got the result. He's a good coach.
That's a great question that for a long time I used to think, even when I was fighting, I used to think, hey, you've never been in the cage, you don't know what you're talking about. Speaking to that, and I think I'm understanding you correctly. Yeah. So how you do one thing is how you do everything. So that coach might not be able to, jump in the pool or strap on the wrestling shoes or whatever and get the same results that you get. But a great coach, look at the NFL, some of the best NFL coaches, they're not, I mean, some of them are former players, but I don't think the majority of them are former great players. Yeah. But the way that I train for a fight, if I see my trainer and my coach training for life, how I train for my fights, then that gives me that is the pull motivation that I need. It's a lifestyle, really.
So it seems like there's a good balance here, because I'm thinking of other coaches, like you talked about football. I think Phil Jackson has some of the most basketball rings as a coach, but I don't think he has one ring as a player. And
think of it that way, like Phil Jackson garners the respect from his players because of how he lives, how the stinking dedication and focus and perseverance and discipline that he applies to his profession. And that's across the board, whether you're putting it towards fighting or cycling or coaching or whatever it is, that right there is what garners the respect and the pull motivation.
Yeah. Really good conversation on push and pull motivation. You guys could read more on that. Just Google it. Coming back to you here, Charlie, I'm wondering, what goes on in your mind? Not that we're going to spend our entire conversation here, but what goes on in your mind when you're coming out and getting ready for the fight before they're going to kind of announce, where you're from and all that before the fight begins? Like, what's going on in your mind as you step into the ring and as the other guy stepping into the ring?
So, there's a lot of different things that can go on. First and foremost, this is all dependent on the fact that when I trained for fights, whether it was a small local show or whether it was a UFC co-main event, I train with the same intensity. So training with that intensity in whatever you do, living with that intensity creates a sense of self-confidence. It creates a sense of ease and a sense of peace. So as scary as these guys were that I fought, I wasn't nervous. I mean, I was nervous because it's a fist fight and you could get hurt, but there was zero intimidation because I believed I trained harder than these guys. Literally, did I? I don't know, but it didn't matter because I believed that I did. So that's kind of a predecessor that led to a generally peaceful feeling. But I won't lie, when you get into the UFC octagon, there's a very distinct feeling of the canvas on my feet, and I'll never forget how that felt, because as soon as your feet hit that canvas, you knew, like, it's just about time. There was no other time in your life that you felt that canvas other than when you were going to fight. And right when the ref would look at him, look at me, and do his little hand thing, and we come at it. Almost every single time without fail, I would think, what in the heck did I do to put myself in this situation right now? And it's true. 100% true. And then right at that time is like when it's slow-mo, he looks at him, he looks at me, and then we're going at each other, and then it's like autopilot, whatever. Then you forget that
training kicks in.
Yeah, for sure.
What did I do to get myself here? But the thing is, you kept doing it. I mean, you said you fought over 27 times. You kept showing up.
It's kind of insanity, I guess.
What I got, though, was it doesn't matter who you're fighting. You were training with a high level of intensity, regardless of the level of the promoter, whether it was the UFC or it was a local league. You were training with that same intensity. There was just this new documentary series that came on. I think it's called Champ. And it's about Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, and Bernard Hopkins. And it talked about how Mike Tyson lost his first professional fight to Buster Douglas. It was because he wasn't training at all. Yeah. Because he thought that this was like, why did they even make him fight him? So he didn't even want to train. And he was just partying in Japan. And Buster Douglas was training because it was the fight of his life. And he won.
Yeah. I mean, so to be honest, I could fight right now. I could fight every other weekend and probably beat up, I don't know, 75% of the guys out there, but I don't, because I'm not committed to training like I used to. So even though I could probably walk out tomorrow, and I'm not speaking arrogantly, I mean, I train I train regularly, but it's not near the level that I used to train. And for that, I just won't do it, because I'm not going to let myself do it unless I'm committed the same way that I was.
What's the difference? Okay, so it sounds like now you're doing it for exercise or lifestyle. You've been doing it most of your life. It's a part of who you are, versus the guy who's training and he has a fight and his whole name is on the line. What's the difference there in mindset?
So, when I train, I train now, I train 6 or 7 days a week. 4 or 5 of those days are pretty much every day is, balls to the wall, lack of a better term, intensity where I'm about to keel over. But the difference is that feeling that I do now, that level is like a 6. And the way that I would train when I was training for a fight was like a 10. So it's, when I'm doing it, I'm on the treadmill or I'm on the street by myself, and I'm pushing myself. It's kind of that push-pull motivation. I'm pushing myself. Whereas if I'm training next to Frank Yeager or George St. Pierre or Jim Miller or, Renzo Gracie or any of these guys, they're pulling me to another level. So it's life and death. I'm not stopping. I'm not stopping until literally I can't stand up.
What role do those other fighters, when you're training with, play in your development because we're talking about fighting here, but this would apply in any sport or even any career, who you surround yourself with. But what is that like when you're training with, you said Renzo Gracie, a legend in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or George St. Pierre, who arguably one of the greatest fighters in the UFC while he fought?
Yeah, a curriculum that I teach or when I talk, some of the bullet points, I call them elements of excellence. And one of them is surround yourself with the best. And I truly believe that in any walk of life, I was a professional fighter. Now I'm a speaker and a podcaster and a mentor. So I'm surrounding myself with the best podcasters out there who are better than me, who have more successful shows than me. Speakers. I'm literally reaching out to some of the most successful speakers there are, who are way better than me. And a key to all of this is humility. So when you want to do big things or you have big goals, you have to be humble. You have to understand, I'm where I'm at right now. And the only way I'm going to get to where I want to get to is by learning from, relying on, forming a relationship with people who are way beyond where I am. And that's the role that those guys played in my training. And that mentality is what I keep in my life today.
Yeah, immediately when he said that, I wrote down him like, you got to be humble, and you said it with humility. I mean, you're a monster. You said you're training 5-6 days a week. I'm like, it sounds like you're training for a fight.
It does.
It sounds like you're training for a fight,
and I feel like I am, but I'm not.
I'm like, okay, but. And you said you could probably beat up 75% of guys. Did you mean off the street? Because it would probably be like 99.
No. I meant fighters.
Okay,
like
fighters.
Yeah,
okay. It'd be like 99.9 off the street. but to reach out and ask for help in a new arena, such as speaking or podcasting or being a coach or mentor here, I think there is a level of humility here, where I think what comes next to talk about is the ego and what role the ego can play in one's success or downfall.
This is something that I really probably about 2 months ago, I read The Ego is the Way.
Yeah,
and
Holiday.
Yeah. And so I really started thinking about this, and I realized that my ego is it's like, a lot of times I'll say that, what makes me great is what makes me bad, or the traits that makes my wife love me the most makes my wife hate me the most at times. It's that sense of good and bad. My ego is what drives me. I mean, my ego is that burning desire that I have felt since a kid, wherever it came from, that if you tell me no, I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to show you. And if today, if I have a speaking possibility and they say no, my ego says, I'm going to become the best speaker there ever was. And you're going to wish that you would have worked with me. So, I'm not going to sit here and say that ego is totally bad, but you do have to keep it in check, because I'll say this, you have to control it. Your ego can't control you. You know, I write that in my book. It says you control your mind doesn't control you. And I look at ego and mind as very similar. So I do think it's what drives me, but if you let it get out of control, it can also be your downfall.
Absolutely. And I can relate with that. If someone says you can't do something, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to spend the next 10 years proving you wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I will go to war to show you that. And it's not that this is how I think on a daily basis, but there are some cases where that ego can drive you to become the best speaker, but at what expense? In terms of like, I mean, you're just trying to, was it really about that one moment? Is that why you're doing it? Is it not about the people that you want to impact? Is it not about something a bit bigger than yourself here?
Exactly. And that's what you have to keep in check, or you will lose sight of that and you will become an egotistical maniac and you will lose all your friends, your money, et cetera, et cetera. Also, if I misspoke, did I say that ego is the way? If I did, I meant ego is the enemy, obviously, but
I think you said ego is the enemy. Ryan Holiday's, it's a good book, you guys listening. Ego is the enemy. And it talks about how the ego can drive you, but can also take you down. And I think it's just really important for especially high performing individuals to be aware of the ego. Now, on this journey with the fighting, what was it like transitioning out of the ring into a whole new arena here where you're speaking, you're podcasting? What was it like you're not off the mat clearly, you're clearly still on the mat, but you're not in the spotlight with, thousands of people chanting.
Yeah. It was very lonely. My last fight was November 8th of almost 2 years ago, and I lost. I got choked out in Brazil. And the arena down there, it was a smaller arena. There were probably about 6,000 people there. It was, if you think of Brazil, this is probably what you're imagining. It was very hot. The lights were very bright. The crowd was very anti-American. There's a chant. They chant in Portuguese that translates literally to "You're gonna die." And I was fighting a Brazilian, so it was like that. It didn't play. I felt fine going into the fight. It was physically I had made some errors and I lost the fight. But I kind of took that lonely, dank feeling from Brazil and I brought it home, and it was one of the loneliest times that I've ever had. My wife was working, she's a teacher, so I was at home by myself and I really didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't know what I was going to do, and it was just it was a very hard time, and it took me a while to just figure it out. When I'm a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk, and he always talks about trying things, try everything, because you'll find what you're good at, you'll find what you like. And after talking with some people, I had already written my book. I published my book, and or I had written it and was working on publishing it. And I thought, man, maybe I'll give this speaking thing a chance. So it was like I thought 1,000 things and finally centered on that, and then just got to work. Just like the day, earlier you were talking about the humility. The first time I went into a fight gym, I was terrible. I was this blue chip wrestler stud, and I got into a fighting gym, and I was as bad as the worst person there. So I took that same mindset and that same, humble approach to speaking. And I just called the first person that was presented to me, and we formed a great relationship, and he led the way.
What I'm getting from this is that you admitted, just like in fighting, that when you try something new, no matter what success you've had in the past, that you're basically going to suck and you have to start at the beginning. You got to be level 1 fighter, level 1, wherever you are, playing a guitar, starting a business, it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah. And that's part of the ego that we were talking about. You have to be okay with that. You have to, you can't fake it. I love using the expression. Did you go to college, Andrew?
Yeah. San Diego State. Yeah.
Got it. So you probably were, you were a freshman, and you probably tried to not look like a freshman, but everyone on campus knew you were a freshman, because you can't not look like a freshman unless you're not a freshman. And it's one of those things that you just have to know, okay, I can't fake this. I'm green. This is day 1. This is week 1. This is talk 1. This is podcast number 1. You just have to get over it and do it.
Yeah. I just was telling you about how I was speaking over this last weekend at my event, and someone was sharing like, Andrew, you started your podcast and it was so successful, whatever. And what I told him, I was like, man, I've never told this to anyone, but my first few episodes, they were so, I felt like I was so bad at interviewing that I would go back into GarageBand and I would re-edit my voice because I'm like, why did I say that? Oh, I'm stuttering. Oh, God, I'm not talking about like deleting the ums and the uhs. Like that's normal. I'm talking about deleting the entire sentence that you said and redoing it by yourself like a crazy person and make yourself look good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's how bad it was. And I was so bad. And recently a lot of guests say it's a great show. I think, you're a great host, whatever. But it was I was horrible, really bad when I first started, and I think it took at least 250 episodes.
Dang.
Before I was like, oh, I think I got it. Like I can hop on here and talk to Charlie and just have a good time, and I have no script here in front of me.
Nice.
But so we talked about like your story here, how you got to start over, and that you're gonna suck in the beginning. What I find most people are thinking when they're starting is like the world tells you that you can do it, and there's books, there's all these success things, and then when you do it and then you suck, you think it's a sign that you aren't meant for this, rather than I have to grow into this.
Yeah, my kind of unofficial theme for my podcast and also, for my talks is uncomfortability and growth. I believe in the power of getting uncomfortable, and I'm nearly certain that's not a word, but I started saying it. I actually said it in a live interview one time, and after it, my wife said, "That's not a word, you know that?" I thought, well, that just comes to me, so I'm going to say it. But it's making yourself uncomfortable and then growing from it. It's almost like a challenge. I love competition. We're talking about competition. We're talking about our ego. Maybe it's my ego that says, "Hey, I want to feel uncomfortable because I want to take uncomfortable and I want to make it comfortable." So I put myself in, first of all, I prepare like no one else. And then I put myself in uncomfortable situations. And what I take from that is the experience and the knowledge to then grow, improve from there.
How do you keep that going? So obviously you've been doing this a long time. It sounds like your whole life you've been a competitor. You've been driven. You mentioned earlier you've been wrestling. And so how do you keep that going? Like, I'm not talking 2 weeks. I'm not talking 2 months or 2 years. I mean, like, this is who you are. Like, it's not, all right, I'm going to be motivated. I want to be consistent for a couple, period of my life here. It's like, no, I want to become someone who is constantly driven.
Yeah. So for me, it's, part of it is genetic. I was kind of born and bred this way, but I'll tell you how you become that. Everyone wants results. So I want results right now. I want to have money. I want to be the boss. I want to be the champion, but no one wants to take like 5 or 10 steps back and reassess, almost like you're a consultant, almost take an audit yourself, audit your life. And the way that you keep that drive and keep it from waning. Look, I'm a naturally driven person. But if you put me around my friends, certain friends who like to party all the time, who never work out, who eat unhealthy food, who watch movies all day and don't ever read, then after a week, a month, a year, I'm going to start to take on those qualities. But if you put me around my driven friends, guys who read, guys who work, guys who are committed, guys who are focused, then I'm going to take on those qualities. So, whether you are driven or you're not driven, look at your life, do an audit on your life. And if you it's like setting yourself up for success. If you take an audit of your life and structure it, so the music you listen to, the podcasts you listen to, the people you're around, the way you eat, the way you work out, the people you're around at work, if you curb them in your favor, that just keeps honestly, Andrew, from this conversation, I'm jazzed. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to kill tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, just put
That's
yourself
how I'm feeling
around,
too. Yeah,
exactly. So put yourself around those situations and it keeps that fire burning.
Yeah. As you're talking, I'm getting ready to have a dinner later with a friend. And then this friend here, every time he comes over, because I have this, I'm just a reader. I love reading books. I've been reading for 10 years since I was 19, and I have a wall of books. Like, it looks like I'm a mad scientist in my office. It looks, it's pretty intimidating, I think. But basically, what happens is all friends come over, and then we'll start hanging out and stuff. And then I'll go over to their house and I'll look at their bookshelf, and they have a little bit more books. Yeah. And then like a couple months goes by, and they have a little bit more books. And then like a couple of years goes by, and because we're just hanging out and stuff, and then all of a sudden they have their own freaking library where they're like telling me about books and stuff. And then it's like I'm a reader, and so when I become friends with someone, they become readers. If I'm dating a girl, she might have 1 or 2 books in her entire house. If it goes at least 6 months or so, like these last few months or a year potentially, she's got a stack of books. And it's just by nature of hanging out, and you become your environment.
Yeah. And what better, honestly, I'm like, if you could see me, my hand gestures, I mean, what better thing is there to believe in something so much and be about it, and then influence the people around you to be about it? I'm sure you weren't saying, hey, friend, go buy this book. Hey, girlfriend, go buy this book. You may have like dropped a line here or a comment there, but they thought, whoa, this is pretty cool. I'm going to do it because you're about it. You're not just talking about it. You're about it.
I think it shows that it's normal. It's not a weird thing to just spend money on yourself, like your personal development. Because I'm just constantly, I buy books like I go to Barnes and Noble. It's like I'm a kid at Chuck E. Cheese. Like I kind of freak out, and I'm like, all right, leave me alone.
you and me both, man. I love it. If you would have told me, well, I mean, I read it's probably been 15 years that I've really read, but it's an addiction, and I absolutely love it. It's part of my day.
I feel though for some, because some can listen to this and be like, damn, I'm going to buy all the books on my list now. But don't confuse this with, because I'm sure you're driven, you're an action-oriented guy, that I'm just reading and all day and not taking action, because I'm in the arena 8-10 hours, and then I'll read for 30-45 minutes or an hour, like in the evening.
Exactly. It's like the books are the tools, but you can have the biggest, baddest toolbox in the neighborhood. It doesn't mean anything if you don't use it.
Yeah. This is huge stuff. So we've talked about surrounding yourself with the right people. We've talked about education and books, and how you've got to be humble when you're starting something out. I think that's so big, is understanding that you're actually not going to be that good when you start out, despite being good at other things.
Yeah. And, the important part of that is understanding it. And this is what I talk about a lot when I work with people, is this idea of systematic living. Like, what made me a good wrestler, made me a good student, made me win a reality television show, made me a UFC fighter, and is making me a speaker and author. So it's like, it's a system. So that humility is at the base. But then once you accept that humility and accept that, man, I have a long way to go, then it's like you just dust off the tools and you get back to work.
You mentioned something too earlier about the fact, like whether or not you win or lose, the outcome, but just the fact you're on the journey is what makes it real. It's like it's what makes it worthwhile. And I think that's how you can find like gratification and fulfillment, not in, oh, I don't have this amount of money, or I don't have this girl, or I don't have this type of body yet, but just the fact that you're in the gym right now, or the fact that you're doing it, like you're taking action, like that's where, like, if you can like that, then the journey's going to go by.
Yeah. Just the other day I was doing a small talk, and one of the guys said, he started off by saying, okay, you've made it. So, and I stopped him, and I was like, according to who? Like, maybe according to you, but according to me, I want to be UFC champion. So I didn't really make it. So then he said, you've made it. We had that conversation. And then he said, but what if you wouldn't have made it? Would you still feel good about it? And would you still do it again? And I equated it to 2 of my close friends who've been on the journey. They deserve to be in the UFC. They deserve to be in the big show, but they're just not. They probably will get there, but they're not. And I immediately thought of them. And if you would have asked both of them, hey, would you do it all over again if you never made it? I guarantee they'd both say yes, because they both put every single ounce of their being into that pursuit.
Damn. I like that. What do you think it is that? What do you think it is, man? That, like, because this is not. It's not like football or basketball, or even, wrestling would likely be the closest thing to MMA. But I've trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a few years, which isn't all of MMA, but it's an aspect of it. What drives you to still to this day want to get in a ring with someone who's been training, just as long as you are, at how to rip your arm off or twist your ankle or knock you out with one right hook?
There's 2 components of that. One, that the idea of what I said, the unofficial theme of my show, uncomfortability and growth. How much more uncomfortable can you get than being in a UFC octagon on live TV fighting a guy who's equally or more tough than you. There's not many places. And I get a thrill out of doing that. That's the same reason that I do insane sprints on the treadmill now, because that's the closest I can get to that feeling. So it's that uncomfortability factor. And then just to kind of add a little bit to that, there's no, guys who do what I do and guys who do more than I could ever dream of doing in the sport, we're not necessarily normal. We're not like the average person. So that thrill, the craziness of the situation is actually what entices us. So I would come down to that, the uncomfortability, and then just the natural attraction to just the craziness of the situation. I'm speaking for myself because I don't know what other guys say, but to me, those are the two things that, just like if you tell me I can't do something, I'll say, yes, I can. It's like, that's the craziest thing ever. Okay, why don't I do it? It just makes sense.
Why don't I do it? While you're talking this, have you seen the movie Rush? It's that race car movie.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, I did see.
Okay,
Yeah.
like can't think of the character, but
the foreign guy is what I was going to say. Is he?
Yeah, I can't think of his name, but yeah, one of the opening lines in that movie is, "The closer you are to death, the more alive you become."
Exactly. And I do remember, because they're racing. It's real wet. Real wet, and they shouldn't be racing, and they're racing, and that's their mentality.
Yeah, maybe there's something there too, which is like when you're fighting, you're fully alive. Like you're
the most telling moment. And honestly, I'm pretty sure I cried. I've had 27 fights. I'm pretty sure I've cried in every one. If you've ever seen the movie Southpaw, with Jake Gyllenhaal, they do a really good job of painting the locker room picture. For me, the most telling moments is after the fight, when I go back to the hotel room and I get in the shower, and it's just me in the water and my thoughts. And I either cry out of total joy and relief or out of total crushing heartbreak. And those moments really make me think, man, I am living life. And that's wow. The feeling that I want to pass on to people.
Wow. Whether you win or lose.
Whether I win or lose, obviously I like the winning part, but no, I mean, when I'm, I have vivid memories when I fought down in Jersey in the at the Tropicana often. And I have, several memories of me being in the shower, just with my hands against the wall, water running down, tears running down my face, and my fans, my family, I can hear laughing and being joyful out in the room. And it's like, it's just it's feelings that I'll never forget that make me think, man, win, lose, or draw, knockout or get knocked out, this is freaking living.
The way you're describing it makes me feel like this. I am in the scene. Like this is a movie scene, and I am watching it. Like it was very dramatic the way you described it.
And I might say, Andrew, I've done a lot of interviews, and that might be the best exchange of conversation that I've had, to be honest, because I don't know if it's us. I don't know if it's this conversation or what, but I mean, I'm in the shower. I was in the shower when I'm thinking about it. So kudos to us. kudos
yeah.
Yeah.
That moment you just said, I'm feeling alive. I'm feeling all this emotion full of joy and excitement. I don't think a lot of men experience that. I think that a lot of men are in a zombie-like state where they're not getting that type of emotion out, where they're like fully living. And I'm not saying you guys got to fight. That's not what I'm saying here. No. I mean, you could be some sort of artist or businessman or teacher, whatever it is, man. You could do anything that makes you come alive. But I think a lot of guys are missing that experience that you just shared.
And I'll tell you what, you're spot on. And I was going to say, before you said you don't have to fight, et cetera. So part of the thing I do, I have different speaking events, and then I work with a few guys in a small group setting. And what I've seen happen, and this is I'm saying to everyone out there, find a small group of like-minded guys to connect to. Because what I've seen happen in this group of 5 people is like, you come there with no purpose. You go to a group, you don't know each other or whatever. And then as you become involved with each other, there creates a sense of community. And the reason that, I read in, I think it was Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. I think it was that book where he talks about, why 12-step programs, why Alcoholics Anonymous is so effective, and community is at the base of it.
Yeah.
And if you find a way to connect yourself to a community, a small group of like-minded guys who believe in the same thing, and if that belief is be your best in everything you do, that's enough of a unifying belief. But the power and the feeling that you'll get from that, and the lack of just mundaneness, it's cut and dry. It's going to happen. So I would suggest to everyone listening, find a group of guys, find a small group to really connect with and get to know, because that feeling and that stinking like focus, it just breeds, and it's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's tribal. I think that's a part of being a human, is we want community. I think that's just how we've survived as humans. And if we're not doing that, then we're like detaching away from what has worked for millennia. To add on that, because it's powerful, is for guys who say, oh, I can't find it. Well, then my answer to you is, like, if you're a guy who's listening to this podcast and we're 40 minutes in and you're still listening, like, you are I consider you like a higher conscious individual, then you got to create that community and start attracting those people.
Yeah. Go to Andrew's website. Go to my website. You're going to find people. Go to follow his social media followers. Go to my you're going to find people. All you have to do is take action. Exactly what you were talking about earlier, Andrew. Take action. Don't just sit on it.
Absolutely. Charlie, let's dive into the knowledge. I'm just going to ask you some rapid fire questions and then shorter responses from yourself. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
So you might be wondering, why would I ever invest in a coach? I've never done anything like that before. Well, it's going to shorten your learning curve and save you the time that it would take to achieve your goal. You can avoid making mistakes that you would otherwise make. You'll get more results because everything will be tailored to your specific needs and challenges. The coach will hold you accountable so you can't procrastinate, so you can't be lazy, so you can't say, I didn't have the time. You'll be challenged and pushed harder than you've ever been pushed. You'll have conversations so powerful that you'll feel more energized, alive, and confident and certain about the goals that you have in front of you and where you want to go. Most importantly, where you want to be. You'll go farther than you've ever gone before when you have a coach. If you want to learn more about our high performance men's coaching program, go to kfmcoach.com. Again, that's kfmcoach.com to learn more about our high performance men's coaching program. You have got to understand that every successful person in the world invests in coaching to go from good to great. And if you're already a high achiever, then how much more could you achieve if you had a high performance men's coach at your side to push you even further? Go to kfmcoach.com to learn more and apply for our high performance men's coaching program. Again, that's kfmcoach.com. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime. First question here I have for you, Charlie, is what advice would you give to someone who's feeling really lost or unsure of what they should be doing?
Pay attention to what you consume, and that start with podcasts. So step number 1, start with podcasts. Get online. Look, there's some unbelievable podcasts out there. Download, look for personal development, look for sports. Go on Andrew's page, my page, look for similar podcasts. Start listening to podcasts.
Yeah, obviously I'm a promoter of podcasts and do that. What do you think is holding most men back from becoming the strongest versions of themselves?
I think a lot of it's fear. That's probably a pretty traditional answer, but that's one thing that I didn't, man, when I decided I wanted to be in the UFC, it was as much as I was 5'10", I was going to be a UFC fighter. So I think it's fear and what you're going to find. Trust me, guys. I fought Johnny Hendricks and Anthony Johnson and Eric Silva and Rick Story. On the other side of that fear is nothing. I heard Jamie Foxx say it one time on Tim Ferriss. What's on the other side of fear? Nothing. So get over it, get over yourself, and take the first step.
That's great. And so I'm excited for this question here. I'm a big reader. What would you say have been 3 of your most influential books that have helped you on your journey?
I always have to say The Slight Edge, because The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson was one of the first revolutionary books in my mind. And it's such a simple concept, but that definitely The Slight Edge. I recently just read How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is one of the best books ever.
That's classic.
Yeah. And it literally changed my life. I act differently now. I have a happy marriage, but now I have a happier marriage. And I'll throw 2 more. Sorry. Start with Why by Simon Sinek was an amazing book. And The fourth one, and this is kind of a fun one, is The Alchemist. The Alchemist is such an awesome book of just simplicity and staying focused and present.
Really good books. And you said revolutionary book, The Slight Edge. It's a very simple. It's like you're what is the slight edge? It's like be consistent.
Yeah. So I do these videos online every single day. That's the slight edge every single day, period. That's it. That's the book. But trust me, take your time and read it.
Yeah, that is the book. Well, when you say you do it every single day, just real quick, how do you do work when you absolutely don't feel like it and there are other things that would be more important to do?
I tell you what has really helped me a lot. So when I started speaking more and I started working with more people and realizing, hey, people are resonating with what I'm saying here, then it doesn't become about me not wanting to do something. It becomes, oh man, I got to do it because people are counting on me to do it. So then it takes the focus off yourself and it puts it on other people. And you're a lot less likely to not do something if you know you're going to even if it's one person, when you know you're not going to when you know that if you don't, you're going to let someone down. So, these videos I do every day, there might be 10, there might be 100 people. I don't know, but I know, hey, if I'm not there, someone's going to be upset by it and someone's going to have a worse day. So that's what really keeps me going.
Yeah. So you're thinking about others, not yourself when you're creating the work. Like it's not about your emotions or your day or you woke up and you're tired, but you're like, dude, there's 100, there could be one, but there's likely hundreds or thousands who want to tune in.
Yeah, when I had a son a month ago, yesterday.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yesterday was his 1 month. And
oh, nice.
I mean, we were in the hospital for 3 days and it was, oh, honey, I got to go. Give me 15 minutes. I got to go make this video. I'll be right back. And it was, there's no, until whatever, my computer breaks or my phone breaks or something. But until that catastrophic incident, I'll be there because people are depending on it.
Yeah, man, no excuses. You just go into an Apple store and use their computer. You're
exactly.
good.
Man, now I don't have an excuse.
Yeah, I've done that before. I had to upload one episode once. My hard drive broke, so I took the file because it was on Dropbox, and I went to an Apple store and just uploaded it. All right, this is probably the most powerful question here, man. It's more of a scenario. Charlie, imagine you had 60 seconds with 25-year-old Charlie. If you can envision where he's at personally, professionally, and you now knowing what you now know today, what would you tell 25-year-old Charlie?
I would say, look, man, you think you know a lot, you do know a lot, but you're going to learn more than you could ever imagine. So the best thing for you to do right now is to take all those preconceptions, all those judgments, and all those concrete set in stone ideals that you have and take them off, set them free. Open your mind up, open your body up, and go for it.
It's beautiful, man. It's beautiful. I like it. This is fantastic.
This is fantastic, dude. We should talk more often.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're definitely coming back on for sure. I think the audience has really enjoyed this as well. I mean, I'm enjoying this. Is ton of good value here. So now let's just kind of we're coming out of the knowledge round, just kind of tuning in to what's exciting you now, for the rest of the year. What are you looking forward to, or any big plans coming up?
Yeah, I'm most, as we've been talking about, so where I'm at in this phase in my career is taking everything I learned from professional fighting, literally, fighting on TV against these monsters and condensing it and translating it into this is what it takes to succeed at that level. And this is how you can apply it to your own life. And so I'm most excited about spreading that message. And the way I do it, I recently started a podcast called A Fighter's Mindset, the Spaniard podcast, where I use a good bit of my experience. I use my perspective of my experience in the guys that I'm around, guys like GSP and Ricardo Almeida and Frankie. It's the list goes on. So I take that knowledge, condense it, but I also make it very, very real life applicable. My co-host is a quote normal guy, so we do a good we do a good bit of back and forth. It's the mindset of a fighter, not how to become a fighter.
Right. Yeah, the fighter's mindset type of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So that's what I'm most excited about, and also just continuing to speak and spread my message. These daily videos I'm doing on YouTube. When you were or on Facebook, you were saying how much of a reader you are. It's 5:30 a.m. Eastern Standard. So West Coast, that's a little early, but if you're an early bird, tune into Facebook.com/Charlie Spaniard, and I'll do the reading, you do the learning.
So are you Are you like 4 a.m. guy or 5 a.m. guy, or what's the deal here?
I'm a 4:30 a.m. guy, and I'll tell you why.
I knew it, man. I knew.
Yeah.
There's just no way you're not. Is basically.
I'll tell you. So a mentor of mine who is an entrepreneur and he's a financial advisor, and he was helping me with I'm all in with this stuff. I don't have, I have a degree, I have ways I could go, but my focus and energy is on building my speaking career, period. And a mentor of mine, we were having these like basically coaching conversations, and he's a friend too, and he wasn't charging me anything. So one day I said, "Hey, buddy, could I have a bunch of questions? Could I talk to you tomorrow?" And he said, "Yeah, but it's got to be at 4:50 when I'm on my way to the gym, because that's the only time I have in the morning, 4:50 a.m." And that whether it was ego, whether it was drive, focus, I don't know, but I said, "Okay, you son of a gun, I'll talk to you at 4:50 tomorrow morning." And I thought it was crazy. And then he kept me to it for a couple weeks. And then ultimately it was almost as if he said, "Good job, Grasshopper. I'll talk to you next week." And then I can't not get up that early. So it's been a habit that I've developed.
Wow, I like the story behind the advice there. That's good. Yeah, I'm working on getting up earlier, but yeah, it's just I feel like I've got, like, when the results are there, I'm like, damn, do I need to wake up earlier? Like
I wouldn't tell you you're wrong. If the results are there and you're good, then maybe it is that way. I will say this. I was talking to someone today. I was having a little call, and the guy said, "I'm trying to go to bed earlier so I can get up earlier." And it was like, boom, a light bulb went off. And I said, "How about you get up earlier and then you'll go to bed earlier? Don't do it the other way around. Don't try to go to bed earlier and then get up earlier. Get up earlier first, because then you'll go to bed earlier."
Yeah, you'll be super tired. Yeah, I like it. All right, guys, to follow up, let's the website here, charlie-brenneman.com. And just for spelling the last name, it's Brenneman. I think just Googling his name, I just did it, and then his website pops right up. And then
I always tell people, just Google Spaniard UFC and it'll come right up.
There you go. There it is. All right, Charlie, this has been a fantastic episode. Really, I appreciate your vulnerability and getting real on the show and sharing your stories here with my community.
It's right back at you. If it's a long time so I can come back on as a guest again, I'll be a co-host. I'll be your water boy. This was really fun, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and millions of downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we're just getting started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a helpful review in iTunes, because it really helps the podcast grow so we can impact even more men in the world who need this. Guys, this is all about living with purpose, where every day you only do things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. And always remember, love the life you have while creating the life of your dreams. Go to kfmfree.com to get a surprise bonus I've made for my listeners. Again, that's kfmfree.com for something that's changed my life, and I'm offering it to you for free. Also, check out my Amazon best-selling books that I've written for you to help you crush life at kfmauthor.com. Again, that's kfmauthor.com to see all the books I've created to help you break through in life. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, founder of knowledgeformen.com, and I'll see you in the next episode.